Well, this day just keeps going and going. I am really excited about our next panel and our next moderator. I was just backstage with them, and they are going to bring this energy. So you are all in for a treat. So I am excited to introduce our next moderator. Like I said, these are all my great friends for the afternoon. Our moderator is Jessica Ferranti. I met her when she was at Cannabis in Tech Today. And since then, she has put together the most amazing company called the Mycelia Group. She is wonderful, she is beautiful, and has the best heart out there. She is also heading up Ignite Her, which is a women-oriented group with scholarships for Ignite It. There is nothing this woman won't do to help other people. So I am so excited to introduce Jessica Ferranti for winning the Ohio Consumer.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Lori. So sweet. Hi, everybody. Welcome. Really excited today to cover some really important points about how retailers and brands can build consumer trust, loyalty, and education with those that are purchasing their products right now. So we've got a really fantastic panel set up. Let's get everybody out here. Hi, everybody. Come on out. Join us. Perfect. Yeah, give them a hand. Perfect. Got Max, Tiana, James, and Ed. Introduce yourselves, everybody.
How's it going? Max Vansluys with Dialed In Gummies. We were Colorado's first rosin gummy to launch in 2020. Brought Dialed In to, thank you. Brought Dialed into Ohio back in 2024 and have since then launched into Missouri, Massachusetts, and Arizona, and have 3 more markets coming on this year. So building and growing.
Congratulations.
Absolutely.
Tiana Arriaga, VP of Product and Marketing with Standard Wellness. We're a smaller MSO. We are in our own backyard here in Ohio, but we are also in Missouri and Utah. And yeah, we are vertical and we are just grinding away. Really excited to see what this year brings.
22 years, by the way. 22 years in cannabis.
OG.
Yeah.
Round of applause.
It's been a long time.
Yes.
So.
Hey guys, James Troja, CEO at Joint Commerce. We're a digital advertising platform helping cannabis retailers, brands, and ancillary businesses drive and measure online sales. We have offices across the US. We're also global. We're launching some new technology this year, so excited to be here and chat with our great panelists.
Thanks, Jason. Ed?
Ed Schmults, CEO of Firelands Scientific. We're a 2-state operator. We have 8 stores in West Virginia, vertical, medical only. It's suddenly a lot more interesting than it was last week. And here in Ohio, we have 7 stores, greenhouse grow, and really focused on low cost of production and making the best quality product we can.
Thank you, Ed. And Jessica Ferranti, CEO of the Mycelia Group. We do consulting, project management, and plug-in fractional executives to help businesses scale sustainably. All right, everybody ready to go?
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
So there's no secret that an unregulated hemp in particular and the illicit market is a huge challenge for Ohio regulators to deal with, but even more so the brands and the retailers who are in the thick of the market on a day-to-day basis. What are some of the things in terms of market snapshot that we can look at right now as far as consumers and say, what are they itching towards the most right now? Is it price, right? Is it the loyalty programs? What is the current snapshot of the market today? Tiana?
I think, from my perspective, it's really hard to market to customers in the way that we want. Obviously, we all know the regulations that we face here with the DCC. So in a place where it's silent marketing, a lot of times we're just seeing people drive towards price. The economy is a big factor in that as well. And I think with illicit hemp in that space, it was a lot cheaper for people to buy and just easier to get to. So with those
Access, right?
Yeah, access. I mean, safe access. And I don't think a lot of patients and customers quite understand what safe access actually is. And there's been a lot of confusion with SB 56 and what that means about that limiting them to access. And really, if you shopped at dispensaries, that really didn't change much of your access. It's really just the other places that were like not in compliance spheres.
Right. And what are you seeing from the retail standpoint?
So we're seeing, it's interesting, it varies. We're seeing in some cases as much as 60% new customers at some of our stores. And perhaps there's greater crackdown on the illicit operators there and the hemp shops. Their area is still up, but only 20%, still great. We're happy to see that. But I really think it is access. And just you pull in a convenience store, let me have a little bit of that, let me have this, and I'll grab this. Now they have to go to a different place, get out their ID, go through all that process. That may be daunting to some. And certainly price and potency is the bedrock of everything. That's what drives it. So you had a high potency, low price product that was easily available. Kind of hard to compete with that, and we couldn't, right, on a head-to-head basis. So it's really interesting to see what's going to happen over the next months and years.
Yeah, and there was a law that was passed in December, right, in relation to banning hemp-derived products. Walk us through that a bit on your end, Ed, because I know on your end you've seen quite a bit of change, as you mentioned, right, since the law took effect in March.
Yeah, March 20th, SB 56 basically banned hemp, and it's likely, well, not likely to change at all for the rest of this year. We'll see what happens after, if there's any federal change and the election cycle coming up in November. So you are not able to buy hemp of any kind, intoxicating hemp of any kind in the state of Ohio. Beverages, you could go get a 2-pound bag of gummies at the gas station.
And entire market is wiped out.
And you can advertise that and all that kind of stuff. So that's gone. So that's a plus. But getting those customers comfortable with coming to us, making sure we have products that are comparable, tested, vetted, age-gated, and all those kinds of things, that's a transition that is 420, I think we saw a lot of those customers coming to take advantage. We'll see what the, part of our job here, all of us in the industry, is to make sure our stores are inviting, that we have consistent products that customers want at the price that customers want. And so this is a great opportunity, but also a bit of a challenge, because these customers are used to getting cheap product in large quantities, and it's different now.
Max, from a brand perspective, are you seeing consumers be more quality-driven or price-driven in Ohio right now?
I think it depends on where in the market, right, on where they live and what they're able to spend. I am seeing a huge shift in quality being the focus, and consumers looking for a consistent experience, because that can change depending on your grow cycles. If you're in cultivation as an operator producing products on the manufacturing side or processing side, you have to have defined SOPs to make sure you can create that consistent product time and time again.
It's like McDonald's. We always talk about if you have McDonald's.
Maybe Wendy's. I'm just kidding.
Listen, either way, whether it's a Big Mac,
Yeah.
Either way, you can't expect a consumer to go into a retail establishment and have the same product they purchased the last time and it be a totally different product, especially from the end of the effects that they're feeling, the milligrams. Consistency is key. So I think the more we get legal operators right in the state to start to pick up from all that hemp left behind, that'll be sort of one of our action items, right, as brands and operators, is creating that consistency and showing them that consistency can exist outside of that hemp market that they're so used to.
Yeah, agreed. And both Ed and Tiana touched on education. That's going to be more important now than ever, because we're now trying to educate all these new consumers that are coming on from the hemp side that we're able to buy cheap products in large amounts. Now they have to spend what has been on dispensary shelves for quite some time, which is considerably more expensive than what they were purchasing before. So now it's on us as the operators to make sure that we're getting in front of those new consumers and educating why price point is different, what makes those products different, and the quality.
Absolutely. And actually, that leads me to the next question for James, which is how do you foresee the education level right now of Ohio consumers? Do you see that they're still in the early curve? Are they relatively educated? I know it's a loaded question, but for the audience.
Yeah, I think it's really about the audience targeting that we have, right? And then having branded creatives that educate and are compliant with the publishers that we run across, but also promote the brand products and the retail stores and ancillary businesses the right way at the state level, right? Ohio is a highly regulated area within the advertising space, so being able to identify the proper creatives, get them approved by the publishers, and then also be able to market and target a legal customer, right, or a high-intent cannabis shopper within a specific geo. or zip code is key for having a great advertising campaign in the state of Ohio.
Thank you. Tiana, this is a great question for you as well, because we were talking about this backstage. The complexity in how you educate consumers is something that a lot of other states don't necessarily have as a major challenge or roadblock. If you want to educate in other states, of course there's limitations with regulations, but it's not so strict that it limits every step of the way in that process. Ohio, what I was learning from you is that it's a very challenging environment to educate, and that causes a whole other barrier for brands, for retailers, and everyone else coming in. So talk to us a bit about what some of those challenges are in Ohio right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's an ecosystem of challenges in the sense that the DCC is very hands-on here. So everything needs to be approved. That goes copy, strain names, you name it. Anything that you see that is...
The strain names are really surprising.
Yeah,
so
strain
you can't
names...
do Blue Dream. You can only do Blue D, if anything.
Yeah, there's certain keywords that, are maybe too attractive to children, or push overconsumption, or things that just go against some of the major guidelines. So as a consumer, and I think this also really rolls off of hemp, if you're used to buying Blue Dream at a deli style at some head shop, and now you have to go to a dispensary, but now you're like, oh, is it Blue D? Is that what I liked before? That's really
you don't know if it's the same strain.
You don't, and that's a jarring experience just from like the bare basis of understanding cannabis strains. Now, if you don't understand terpenes and things, like you want to be really honest with your consumers, and so that is a challenge when you're having to work within the framework, especially then if you take it to a vape form and you really have to change names based on flavors. So there's all those things that are difficult, and I think that when you can't really engage with people on that education level, then you have to be crafty. So SEO is a really good place where you can start blogging and putting things out there that are education-based, but it takes forever.
For approvals, for DCC approvals.
Well, approvals, but just even the timeline for people to adopt, because then they're going off, if they're searching something on Google, and then you have one of your blogs pop up to educate, it's still not really direct. And so the only point that we still have real control on is educating our staff, especially when you're vertical for your dispensaries, so they can talk to customers about those products. But when you can't really go D2C in a lot of places except for like advertising in your lane, and it's very, very limited, it's difficult to do. And it's going to take a lot longer to scale those things, especially as we were talking about brands, segmentation, top quality versus value brands, and how that really comes to play in every other CPG market.
Sure. And what are you seeing from the level of consumer education in the state right now, just from a retail perspective? Are you seeing that they're still buying purely based on THC percentage, which is obviously an issue in a lot of other, medical and rec markets? Are you seeing them a little more educated? Or what would you say the state of that is today?
Yeah, Ohio's interesting. I mean, I saw some data last summer. Half of the citizens of Ohio didn't know that cannabis was legal in the state. So, that's a bit of, because we can't advertise, right? And so there's you sure as hell know in California or, in Massachusetts, billboards everywhere. Oh, I guess I can buy cannabis now. You can't do that here. And then I think there's also a lot of people, oh, marijuana, no, I don't touch that. I get hemp at the gas station. Yeah. And you're like, oh my God, that is worse. That is the same thing, but worse. So I would say there's an opportunity to improve the education. And, I don't want any of us to come off as like we're complaining. We're in this great industry, there's a great opportunity here. These are challenges that we have to take. The industry has to do some things. For beverages, it's killing me. You get a beverage 50 or 100 milligrams, or now there's 1,000 milligram shot. That's a bad 3-day weekend for me. That is. And meanwhile, the hemp beverages were 2.5, 5 milligram, 10 milligram in a 12-ounce can. So you could continue to operate and have a functional conversation and be social. Come on, industry. That's what we need to be making, is to appeal to those customers. So when they come in the door, they don't see 50 or 100 milligram options. They see 2.5, 5, 10.
Once you lose them, they're gone, right?
Yeah.
If someone takes way too much their first time, you're losing a potential lifetime customer.
Totally.
So we're working on that, trying to figure out what product set do we need to make sure there's $1 billion market out there that, and shame on us if we lose that, right? We've got to find a way to get our arms around that and make those customers feel welcomed and that they're finding what they need in our stores.
Absolutely. No, it's interesting. I mean, a lot of the markets are obviously facing, like I said, that same challenge of, people shopping, consumers, honestly, right, mostly shopping based on price. and THC percentages, but I think Ohio is unique in that people don't know it's legal in the state yet. Huge portion. So there's obviously a lot of challenges with the DCC and just overall, for operators to find these different ways to educate, to meet the consumers where they are. We can only stress about the things at least that we can control.
100%.
Right? Stress about that.
Yeah.
And then make the steps and pave the way for different brands and retailers to start to be able to access, the consumers in different ways. What are some of those different ways that you can control, the education level? You could change the shift in the mindset of consumers in space away from, percentages and price and things of that nature.
We've actually had some success running like cannabis education campaigns, right? Just brand awareness that cannabis is legal in the state
What does
of
that
Ohio.
look like, James?
It'll just be like a branded store creative targeting all the high intent cannabis shoppers. Now, our system is a little different with our technology to where we are targeting a one-to-one device ID, not a cookie-based identifier. Cookie-based identifier could be a composite makeup online of what the internet thinks you are or who you are based on your browsing behavior. Versus we have direct relationships with publishers that pass us those device IDs. So we know if somebody is a cannabis shopper based on our
So it's not an educated guess, is your point?
It's not an educated
targeted.
guess. And so we can run creatives for stores educating cannabis shoppers or high intent shoppers that it is legal and that you can buy in-store and online in the state of Ohio.
Where do you think the balance is in terms of responsibility? And this might be a little controversial, but in terms of responsibility of educating the consumer, do you think it's largely the brands and some things that they can really do, the retailers, and how can both groups work together to meet really the same objective? Anybody?
I'll take that
Next.
one. So I think it's a two-part, right? Like it's on the brands to make sure that obviously the bud tenders are educated so they can educate the consumers, which is priority number one for us whenever we enter into a new market. We'll set up bud tender educations, lunch and learns, whatever you want to call it, to make sure that the bud tenders have a chance to ask very open-ended questions to make sure they fully understand the product and how to sell it and differentiate it from what else is on shelves. Then the next step is to do the pop-ups, which, some brands look at as a waste of time, which we do not, because that gives you that perfect opportunity to catch a customer before they go in to make that purchase, potentially pivot their decision by offering a product, or in some markets, like we're able to give out non-medicated gummies. Can't do that in Ohio, but that's a fantastic way for Dialed In to be able to show the consumer this unique texture and flavor that it isn't always offered in other edible products. So I believe it's definitely on the operators to help the retailers educate the consumers and the employees to sell the product. I don't believe it falls directly on retail.
That's totally fair. How about you, Ed?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I mean, the relationship with the customer is at the retailer, so that's sort of the stage. But yeah, any and all resources that you can bring to bear. And, digital's massive. I mean, 2/3 of our orders are coming through digitally now. So how do you have a moment while that customer is shopping there to make sure they have some education? And, the training, the hiring of your staff, the training of your staff, and the ability of all of us as brands and retailers to present a consistent experience so that customer says, okay, I know what I'm getting there. That's the beginning of that brand segmentation that's going to occur. And it's going to be slow because you can't advertise, right? I mean, think of any consumer industry out there. Cars, shoes, handbags, clothes, there's good, better, and best, right? And often a significant price premium as you go up that scale. And in cannabis stores today, everyone has the same stuff. So the differentiator has to be things like speed, service, education, and sadly, price is kind of right there because there isn't a whole lot to differentiate.
Because you have to really retain them at that point once you've gotten them in. Yeah, imagine like marketing any product where you cannot distinguish yourself from your competitors. I mean, that's an extremely challenging market when you're
The low-cost provider is going to win that every time.
Yeah, 100%, which is important. I mean, to his point, SEO and building out, and your point as well, Tiana, building out the SEO and finding different ways where you're within, regulatory compliance, but you're still able to meet them. And to your point as well, pop-ups, I think, are a tremendously important thing because that is one of the few opportunities that brands have to directly speak to, meet their buyers where they are and truly educate on site. And I think we're seeing a shift of a lot of people going like in-house and doing pop-ups once in a while. I think that's to to the detriment of the industry as a whole.
Totally. And being vertical, that is one of the greatest opportunities, is that you have people coming through your doors that you can communicate with. And I think that's a luxury to have, being an operator. And when it comes down to education and marketing, it's really hard to make things financially viable across the board. And what are the first budgets that usually get hit? Marketing budgets.
Absolutely.
And these are all things that really attribute to, I think, the success of entire organizations. Like if you don't allocate resources to the education, if you don't allocate resources to marketing, it's really hard to have the effect that you want, especially in a market like this.
You have to be super strategic at that point to find those different ways.
And also with the approval timeline. So if you know Green Wednesday's coming up, or you have all of your core things that are blocked out through your calendar, you have to be months ahead for approvals to hit them. And still, with all the best planning.
There's no guarantee.
No guarantee whatsoever.
So you could spend months building something out in order to have the framework, right, from a marketing standpoint.
Yeah.
Spend months building out the language, right, the materials, and then it's just a waiting game to see if it'll actually be
100%.
approved.
100%.
Now, how complex, do you have to go extremely detailed when submitting that to the DCC? Can you pitch an
Yes.
idea or a topic? So the point is that
you
you're
gotta do
not
everything.
pitching a topic and getting approval and then moving forward, right? It's like you're basically building the entire house just to then figure out, can you have the permitting?
Yeah, all packaging approval numbers need to be included for advertising submissions. Like if it's an event, from the table tent to the assets to the merch, everything, the copy there, everything.
unique.
And so it takes very unique planning, and you have to be ahead. And I don't know about anybody in this room, but I don't feel ahead a lot of times. So I try, but yeah, it's a challenge. And I'm thankful that I have a really industrious team who likes to work and build, because that's what it takes to get through, is you got to grind.
Yeah, you gotta have a different, it takes a different human to be in cannabis. We're all painfully familiar. But yeah, in terms of other strategies that can be employed. So we talked about, again, meeting the consumer where they are, right? Doing pop-ups, finding different ways to implement digital strategies. Have you seen any other real, strategies being successful in Ohio as far as, again, the education portion of things, being able to maybe guide consumers a little bit, I would say, towards some more premium products and diversifying a bit? Have you seen anything that's really stood out? Because I've seen in other states, I'll give you an example. I've seen other states where there are certain products that are geared towards the senior citizen community.
Yep.
And so we've seen brands, phenomenal brands like Farrow's Beverages, who's diving into THC as well. They're going and actually busing people back and forth from senior citizen facilities, educating them, doing workshops, and then converting them into consumers by taking them to the dispensaries. So there are obviously strategies that can be employed, but what are they? How do they work by state? And Ohio specifically, have you seen anything, close to that? Anything super unique that can be used?
We did something, we started in March, a social media campaign around a peach as a metaphor for all things cannabis, right? Because who doesn't like a peach, and that's fine. And so we had these sort of, little mysterious postings, and engagement was up, a massive amount. And then we launched a whole bunch of peach product, gummies, some peachy strains, some peachy terps in our carts, and blew through the product. People were coming in looking for the product. They're coming in for the merch as well. So I do think you can do social media, but you have to be clever about it. You can't just say, hey, we've got good weed, because you're not going to get past the social media hurdle, much less the Ohio hurdle.
You mentioned it's the local dispensaries are the ones winning out in that area, right? Because that's really what it's coming down to. So leveraging social, creating creative campaigns is really one of the biggest things. But yeah, hopefully we'll start to see some more creativity be allowed and employed in the state. Let's talk about one of the other big elements, of course, that is very unique to each market, which is the pricing and retention strategies, right? So I imagine now that with the recent law passing of banning hemp, there's sort of a shift, I'm sure, of a lot of brands and retailers trying to figure out how pricing should really adapt, right? Because when you look at markets where, let's go smoke shops, for instance, those pricings are going to be what consumers are used to. Now when you're shifting into a completely legal market, yes, the product is compliant and it's clean and consumers feel maybe excited about, consuming safer, but ultimately they already have this like this blueprint in their mind of what the pricing should look like. I imagine that's a little bit of a difficulty as well in terms of converting and also retaining some of the existing business that you guys have had, right? Ed, could you speak to that? Well, sorry.
Yeah, and I think we can't ignore the abomination that is Michigan, right? The price
I'm
differential there.
Switzerland, Ed, okay? I don't know what you're talking about.
Is, I think Pablo Zuanik of Zuanik and Associates, good research if you're all looking for cannabis research. He posted retail price per gram in Michigan was $2.16, in Ohio $5.88. And there's a dead zone in northwestern Ohio because of Michigan. So that's a huge challenge, as well as those hemp customers migrating up. And at the end of the day, respectfully to my team and everyone up here, brands don't matter yet. My definition of that is a customer walk into a store, do you have brand X? No, they turn around and walk out, right? If you don't have a product they're asking for, typically you say, well, I got these. Okay, I'll take one of those. Sure. So to me, that's a brand that doesn't quite, we're not there yet. It's coming.
It's loyalty, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the brand loyalty hasn't been built yet. And that's something that you really are going to primarily see in mature markets, right? Where now people are familiar, obviously, in a lot of those states, even like California, the marketing infrastructure is very different.
It's bananas, yeah.
I'm sure, I know you.
Yeah.
I know you know Tiana.
I know, I'm a West Coast girl through and through. I'm new to Ohio, so, it's been a hell of a learning curve being here. However, I think to that point, yeah, brands are going to be the thing that succeeds. Cannabis is just like every other industry that we know, but the regulations is what keeps things slower. So as long as the frameworks exist here, marketing is going to be slower, but brands are what win. And you're going to see that across the board. Right now, we're training customers. There is no loyalty. Even if you have loyalty programs, you can structure those to try to get information or incentivize it in the compliant frameworks to have people involved, but it's still a challenge. Truly, brands have such an opportunity here, and that starts with consistent, good quality product.
I was going to say how, right?
Yeah, like strains, good quality product, good quality strains, and actually trying to do the right thing and put good product to market. I think when, we're talking about all the different categories, there's ways to do live resin in a right way, and there's ways to do it wrong, so those operators will over time, and that's where this marathon is not a sprint. We're going to be grinding a long time, and the commitment and the dedication to the customer is really what's going to set people apart. It's going to be a while. So
yeah, and I think like any other market too, the operators that are able to pivot quickly, right, and be flexible in their products, their pricing strategies, anything, are going to really come out on top because regulations change constantly, right? There's no such thing, I always say there's no such thing as an expert in cannabis, right? Ultimately, you can know everything there is to know, and then tomorrow something changes.
But store demographics change, medium income in those areas are different. Your segmentation is male, female, or is this a flower shop that people want? It's very different than vape consumers. So understanding the data at that level and who you're serving also greatly helps you understand who you would like to be engaging with and how to structure those things. But there's many tools in that toolbox. It's not one size fits all, and it definitely takes strategy.
That's a great point. Yeah, I think there are two, primary things to focus on, which is being in front of your audience and being able to talk and educate. And also, you mentioned one really important thing that we didn't touch on, which is leveraging data. There are so many, I say, we were talking about this earlier. It's like a doctor handing you a medical report and expecting you to just read it and understand and connect the dots. But there are tools now that exist in cannabis that do that reading for you, that connect your two symptoms and say, this is the result, right? I think the biggest thing now is for all the companies in Ohio to come together, find different ways, of course, to help improve regulation, things like that, but also really leveraging the data. What is the data saying, right, in terms of what's working, what isn't, right, what consumers are leaning towards. So I think it's a very big thing that we hope to see more in the Ohio market. that be leveraged.
I also think that the consumers that we're marketing to right now are the smallest subset. You know, when this thing is more wide open across the United States and is just easier to market to, there's the 70% that's going to be, I think, the low dose consumers who are more discreet consumers. Like right now, it's just, we're still in such an early phase. I think things will definitely shift. I don't know if I'll see it in my lifetime, but at some point.
One could hope.
One can hope. But, you know, I think how we're marketing to super heady consumers or cannabis, like THC chasers or strain chasers, all those things, that is nowhere near most of the demographics that if we could open this up to the United States, what those consumers, like the education is very different there and the lead-ins are very different there for product, so.
Yeah, it's leaning into the segments too. And each, of course, even across Ohio, right? There's so many different segments of consumers to be targeting.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think ultimately, just to kind of wrap up, you know, we talked about number one, strategy, right? When it comes to marketing, when it comes to getting out and educating the consumer, it's largely just very creative, unique strategies. Two, meeting buyers where they are, right? Pop-ups, leverage any opportunity you can to meet with, you know, your constituents, your consumers. And third, like I said, is leveraging data, right? How do we take the market, that information that's already presented to us and leverage that versus trying to reinvent the wheel? So, thank you so much to our panels, our wonderful panelists today.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Give it up, everybody. Max, Tiana, James, Ed, thank you so much for joining me. And thank you, everybody. We're really excited to see what the Ohio market brings from here. And again, I hope you got some wonderful nuggets to walk away with today. Thank you for having us.
Thanks.
All right, let's give it up for our last panel. Weren't they amazing?